Nick Mueller, and the invisible Matt Krotz. And
hey,
the
Does
metal.
he exist?
He does
Yeah,
exist.
I was trying to fix that so we'd have a logo to look at or something cool, some art, but I don't think Restream lets us do that.
Yeah, I haven't seen an ability to do logos on Restream yet.
I don't know how it's supposed to happen. I have seen other people do that, but I think it might be from using OBS integrated because it'll do that. But
yeah,
I don't have that magic. So,
Restream is kind of weird.
It's not something I've taken the time to learn. There's just so many things to do in the world. Anyway, and the metal may be joining us later, but he said that like his roommates decided to play a trivia game right next to his head, and so he's not sure if he's going to be able to join for the noise.
Nice.
But I snarked at him on Twitter anyway, so there you have it.
Snark is always good.
Well, you know, it's one of the few things that I do. Flying Saucer has joined us in the chat. Thanks for tuning in there. Tonight's theme is what is Rhys doing wrong?
Everything.
You've been talking to my wife, haven't you?
I was gonna say, why didn't you just bring your wife on tonight? Could have answered all those questions right away.
She doesn't like to. She doesn't like the spotlight.
Oh,
in fact, completely honest, she doesn't really care for me mentioning that she exists. But I'm too crazy about her to not let the secret out sometimes.
Well, that's a good thing.
But I've been given fairly specific instructions to not give any details about the specificness of her specificness. So,
well, I always say like any woman who is comfortable with with getting on streams with a bunch of dudes is probably a woman to watch out for.
So well, it depends on what stream we're talking about as well.
Well, and yeah. I know what you mean, but at the same time, you got to be careful the quiet ones too.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll leave that too.
Yeah.
It's Doug Tenaple, my acquaintance and colleagues probably too. I don't know. I know him. We talk every once and again.
Take it, use it.
Well, it's not like we exchange Christmas cards or anything, But anyway, earlier this week he had a stream talking about the beloved Miss Tenaple, his wife of many years, and what a treasure it is. And it is. I tell you what, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. The good book tells us it's 100% true.
It is very true.
Man, fire is also a good thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's good doesn't mean there's not caution, wisdom, and mindfulness to be in play there. So, so it's one of the things I think I don't like the idea. This is not related to my wife at all, generally speaking. But like from a legal perspective, I think there's problems. There's a problematic sense with the idea of no fault divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, knowing that your partner can walk, that makes a value to it.
Yeah.
Of course, even before no fault divorce happened, my great grandmother, actually, I think two greats back in the day, she was kind of a trollop out there. So left my great granddad just on the prairie with like 4 kids, just disappeared.
No kidding.
Yeah,
it's usually the other way around. You hear about how the guy just up and leaves. Like,
oh yeah. We
had a similar thing where one of the grandpas just disappeared, and then just randomly came back 10 years later, like nothing happened. Like, I'm done. I got my stuff and I came back.
Yeah, and actually, my great grandfather on a different line of the family had his first wife died in childbirth, and his second wife. Hello, Metal. By the way, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just in the middle of a story.
Hey, Metal, what's up?
That's okay. I'm stuck on push to talk.
Yeah, I figured. Oh. Anyway, my mother's father's father, his second wife, and her daughters, my step great aunts, did not get on well with the other parts of the family, and my step great grandmother ended up just disappearing. Like just taking her daughters and disappearing for like 5 years. And then after her daughters were grown, she came back until she died. And it was something about like the daughters and the like my step grand aunts and my great uncles like just didn't get on together at all. There was some sort of conflict in the family, but when, you know, my Mamie was her name, and when her girls grew up and got married, then she came back around. So
That's weird.
yeah, I don't know. So it's one of those things that all happened before, you know, my mother existed. So like, you know,
I always wanted to be on the opposite end of those, like the people that actually up and run, because that's kind of a consistent thing in my family as well. Like the people that do end up running, like when you finally get a chance to talk to them and being like, why? And it's usually for like some sort of really selfish, crazy, idealistic sort of notion of like, oh, I wanted to relive this thing, or, you know, that the pressure got too much to me, or like it's always something really diatrate or ill-contrived. Like they can't think of like the consequences of what they're doing. It's all about themselves or the notion of what they're going through, one way or another.
Yeah. Hang on. Oh crap! My computer's about to die, and I can't find my charger here.
It wouldn't be a Matt show unless that happened.
Yeah.
There it goes. Yep. So I guess we'll all hang out for a few minutes.
There's an answer to one thing he's doing wrong.
So one thing, Matt needs to start charging his computer before he starts the stream. We're all gonna probably vote on that one.
Yeah.
Hey, hopefully the StreamYard now doesn't die off, because that's happened before. So hopefully we can continue and he can get back in time. Otherwise this will all shut down. So hopefully he gets back in time.
Let's see. It looks like it's still. Anyone in the chat want to say hi to us? See if you can hear us.
Other people actually watching.
Yeah, we got a few people. Flying Saucer, Calvary Collective. How you guys doing?
Hey, it's Paul. How's it guys? How you guys doing? We'll hold down the fort for a few minutes.
Nick, I've never I think we've been like ships passing in the night, I believe.
Yes.
And
yes, I don't think we formally met, have we?
I think I have some pretty high regard for you.
Thank you. I do
pretty
too.
Cool streams. Seem like a pretty cool guy. So
well, thank you.
Cheers. And Demon Hunter looks really cool. He did a Demon Hunter Raven. It's really high quality. Hope it's still coming along nicely, because
it is. I'm currently working on it right now. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So the work never stops, as they say. But yeah, thank you, because I really like your work as well. I want to so I know you've done 2 books. Is it pronounced Kyrie? Is that how it's pronounced? Or am I saying that completely wrong?
Well, Kyrie, but
Kyrie. I mean,
okay. Honestly, Kyrie. Everyone says Kyrie, and that's fine. Everyone knows how to spell it. It seems, which is the
I can spell it, but I have no clue how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually said it right when somebody asked me what the name was not too long ago.
Oh yeah.
See, Matt's back.
Nice.
Hello. What were you guys talking about while I was in the ether?
We were talking about the first thing that you do wrong is you never charge your computer. So that's number one.
Yep.
This is the
on the stream.
not the third week in a row, because I took Christmas off, but but the show, my last show before Christmas, this happened in, and 2 weeks before that it happened too.
I think every stream I'm on with you that ends up happening.
Oh my God, it's
worst. Probably me.
Well, and part of it was I come right from work, right? And on my Thursdays, everyone knows not everyone knows my excuse, but a bunch of people know my excuse that I'm on the road. I spend like 5 hours driving on Thursdays. And so then I get in and I'm like, sit down.
Right.
And I went to reach for it. I went to look at my backpack, which is right here. It was under my bag. And so I'm rifling through all the pockets. Where did I put it? Did I leave it at the office? Am I going to have to run across town to get... No, it's under my bag. So, yeah.
It happens.
Oh, man, I tell you what.
At least you found it.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
So Matt, what made you want to do this topic to begin
okay,
with.
okay. So the topic for those of you who have joined late is or didn't see on Twitter, it's what does Rhys do wrong? And the reason is like part of it is I guess jealousy.
Wow.
Not really. I mean, not
Well,
actually.
we already figured out one.
Yeah.
We got one down on the list.
Yeah. So, but
This
no,
is great. By the way, I'm loving the push to talk is actually making it funnier somehow. You hear the white noise and then you get the zinger. So
well, part of it is that's what the metal does. Is if there's anybody who's is like he's deadbeat with the zingers, and I think the only person who's better at it than him, and I haven't had him on in quite a while, but Twitless.
Yeah.
Twitless is like savage. He'll have me.
Oh, and we always go at it in the chat too.
Oh,
not like at each other, just at whatever's going on.
If he's in the chat, I can barely even, especially if I'm doing a serious topic. There have been times I've done like something like really meaningful. I'm talking about, I'm going on a rant, and then he'll like pop up with some joke in the chat, and I'm just like I just crack up and I lose all credibility.
You gotta be really careful what you say around him because he definitely won't leave it unchecked. He'll press that really quick.
It's a great skill to have. It keeps you humble. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so part of the thing is like that like all of us, right? We're looking for an audience, right? We're trying to get people to look at our products. We're trying to get people to spend money or spend time. Get eyeballs on these stories that we've spent hours and in my case years crafting, right? Because this is going to sound like whining, and I don't mean it to sound like whining because I care, but I also know that like it doesn't matter, right? But Force the Good and Evil is a story that we started in 2003 developing, myself and buddy Chris Lawton, and we've been online with it since 2006, right? It's nearly 600 pages long. It's part of our huge, expansive universe that we have. Some of it's been print, some of it's been online, some of it's been unpublished. But it's this big thing. Is I'll make myself sound better than I am. This Mitchinarian saga about freedom and government and heroism, all this kind of stuff. And I think the only person who's read it is me. I mean, that's not true. We've had probably about 30 people that have been following us through the years, in ebbs and flows and all that kind of stuff, right? And I know it's not going to be everybody's thing, and it's sort of like I've had name drop again. I've had Doug Tenaple on the show before, and if you're a kind of person who's a storyteller, it's about the audience, but it's also not. It's about the story. And even if nobody is watching, if you have to keep telling stories. It's just part of your build. It's part of how you're wired, right? So the fact that like nobody is there to appreciate it, comparatively, it's
discouraging.
It's discouraging, but it's also like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to tell the story? I just don't see that happening, right? So that's one of the challenges that comes with something like that. But I also know that like you can't necessarily, but you want an audience. You don't just stand there yelling at the sky forever. You want people to pay attention to it. You want to enrich people. And in my case, I believe that I'm telling stories that are true, that there's truth, there's beauty in there. And I'm not just trying to sing to myself in the shower, right? I want people to be able to read it. So
it's pretty fun though.
But of course, and have fun. But I mean, so part of the thing is I look at you guys, every one of you guys, and you're people that have found audiences, right? You're people that have generated excitement about your properties and once again, not to seem ungrateful, right? Because it's not like I don't believe there's a fixed pie with these sort of things, right?
Right.
But I have been doing this since 2005. Right. I've spent.
I can hear you on that one.
Right.
Last year, I could say the same thing until last year.
I spent my children's childhood doing this, right? And and it's been fun. But there you go. So my thing is, I mean, so it comes to what can I do better, or what am I doing that I need to stop? Is there something that is limiting my exposure? Is there something that I'm doing that is stupid? Are my stories just so niche that they're just for like me and my kids are the only people that appreciate them?
Well, it could be like, so it's a balance, as you say, but I haven't heard you say yet in your explanation tonight how you're actually listening for an audience and trying to find what they want and learn how to be fluent in the vernacular that they need to be communicated to, and then reaching them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I hear you talking about the stories you want to tell, which is great. That's half the puzzle, I think. But I haven't heard you speak to that yet, and so maybe that could be an avenue to. Gosh, I don't know if anyone wants to.
No, this is all good because
that's good. That's good, Matt, because I'm professionally good at listening, right? Because
sure.
For my job, right, I ask specific questions and I look for specific answers, and I lure people into conversations to trick them into telling me about themselves. So
that's marketing 101.
So I can help them figure out how to make their lives better. Right. That's what I do for a living.
Yep.
But when it comes to marketing, I don't have one-on-one conversations with people out in the world about my comics. Right. And I wouldn't even know how to broach the subject.
A lot of times you don't.
Because that's like in my job, people come to me and they say, Rhys, I need da-da-da-da-da. And I say, really? Well, tell me why you need this. And then we'll hash it out and talk about it. And pretty soon somebody's telling me that they, what's going on with them. But that's not what's, obviously what happens here. And years ago, when we first started putting forces up there, like a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before Facebook, before Twitter, and the message boards were a thing and comment sections were a thing on webcomics, we got a little feedback back in the day about stuff. And those things were kind of moving along, and then technology shifted and everybody moved away from those platforms. And so, you go to like a comic group on Facebook, right? And you throw your pitch around there, and you have sometimes really helpful people that talk about putting pitches together, but that doesn't mean all of these guys are creators. None of them are reading your book comics. None of them have any idea about what you're actually talking about. They just all they're interested in, all their investment is in the presentation of it. Right. Yep. And if your presentation, that sounds like a really good pitch. That sounds good. Oh, okay. That's great. What do you think of the story? Oh, I'm sorry. And I don't want to just sit there and ask somebody, so, hey, I got a 600-page webcomic with crappy art. Tell me what I need to do better for the story.
Can I cut you off for a second there? Getting people to read your material is the hardest thing. It's like, number one, entice them with the art. Number two, entice them with the concept. Number three, maybe they'll read it. Like, out of every, like, you almost have to, like, I want to use Larry Higgins, Niobe's, as a good guy, as a way. Like, every time I've seen him going around, he's forcibly asking people. I don't want to say forcibly, but he's going out and asking people, did you read it? It's almost like it has to be the third part of your agenda of, like, I have to create the book, I have to market it, I have to sell it. Third, you have to ask, how did people resonate with it? And that's something I learned this year. So I put out chapter 1, and I didn't ask anyone. I never got any feedback, and because I never created that goal. But this time around, I purposely pursued that, and people gave me back a lot of feedback. But it's part of your loop. It has to be part of your marketing agenda on top of it. I'm sure everyone here can agree that a lot of people aren't going to give you feedback unless you're open to it and you're also bringing it about. And that's a whole entire different story. That can be really hard to get.
Which is part of why I'm doing this. Because I know, like, you each have read some of the things I've written.
I love Joe Jobs, by the way. Absolutely love that 2 pieces.
Yeah, I really enjoyed making that one. That was a lot of fun. And
then,
I know I know the Metal's read chunks of Forces, and Matt's read some stuff. I can't remember what all, but
yeah, some Forces, some the Indiegogo you did in 2019, I think.
Oh yeah,
and then the story you wrote for me. So,
well,
which was very good.
I helped hammer out some plot. I wouldn't. That was about it.
Well,
so
that's still a lot.
So one other thing I'm picking up from what you're describing when you talk about why you're doing this is okay. So because this is a hobby for all of us, we're approaching it in the sense, I think, of we're trying to find something that we don't get from our job, and we're doing that intentionally. So if you're listening all day, maybe you don't want to listen all day for your hobby, which is entirely fine, but that is going to make it more challenging to find your audience and give them what they're asking for. You know what I mean? So what do you think about that?
Do you also know where your audience is? That's another part. Like, are you even in the right place marketing it? That can be a big thing.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So first off, what is your genre? What are you writing?
Okay, so, and here's the tough bit, right? I have a really hard time pinning down what I write to a specific genre, right? Because one of the things that we wanted to set up when we started the company to begin with is we took a lot of inspiration from where DC Comics was in the late 90s in terms of where we wanted to frame our universe, where we could have something that was silly happening in the same universe as something that was serious, because they had these crossover themes that were part of an overarching societal narrative, right? So Forces is ridiculous. Right? It's high drama and slapstick comedy and teenage angst all rolled together into a story about high school in Wisconsin, right?
I know a little bit about Wisconsin.
Yeah. I've had to learn to write the comic. But yeah. So that's Forces. But Forces takes place in the same universe, the same tapestry as our expositioner stories, which are serious, urban detective kind of stuff, right? With corporate politics and political intrigue and government conspiracy and all that kind of stuff. But they share history, and they share background, and that's all part of it. And of course, like Joe Jobs, which has this backdrop of this world full of superheroes, is still a ridiculous slice of life comedy, right? I mean,
right.
And I think we played it pretty straight edge, except for the fight, the fight in the parking lot. Oh, spoiler alert! There's a fight in the parking lot. So, but that's all part of that, right? And so I don't think that we have an audience. I think it might be me.
What?
Because that's part of the thing is it's one of the things that I love about fiction are genre crosses, right? People that are really capable. Like have you guys seen the movie Grosse Pointe Blank with John Cusack?
No, I have not. No.
Oh goodness sakes. Okay, so John Cusack plays an assassin, a former government operative who was a spy, worked for the CIA, went freelance as a killer, right?
John Cusack.
Why would you do that? And he's hitting a midlife crisis, right? And his secretary, played by his sister Joan, convinces him to go back to his hometown of Grosse Pointe, Michigan, for his 25th high school anniversary or reunion, right? And so he gets back to Grosse Pointe, and everything is so disjointed from it, but at the same time, somebody's come back from his spy life to kill him. It's Dan Aykroyd.
Nice.
Oh, jeez.
So Dan
Okay, I'm
Aykroyd.
picking up. Yeah.
So it's and like the fight scenes are like legit fight scenes. I mean, it's great action, but there's also this like slapstick comedy aspect to it, and there's like this late 90s ennui, high fidelity kind of drama that's underlying it. They like, what am I doing with all this kind of stuff? And Ezra wants to know where your camera is, Matt.
I know. It's terrible. Like, you're used to at least seeing a circular logo that kind of at least lets you know that you're a person that's unique, but it's not even doing that.
Well, yeah.
And I spent all my money on comics, so I haven't even bought.
Story of our lives.
$30 camera. So
right.
I'll be fixing that. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, use that stimulus money.
Oh, jeez.
Did you even qualify for it?
In life. Well, yeah, but everything in life is suddenly going to become $600 more expensive as a result.
It already has.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
We're already there.
But anyway, so the thing about Grosse Pointe Blank is like it fills all these little genre niches, but it fills them all like honestly. Like it doesn't scrimp on the action just because it's a comedy, and it doesn't have real drama. I mean, the drama feels real too, and like all this stuff, and it matches up with these really, really well, where it's a little bit slice of life, it's a little bit action, it's a little bit intrigue, but it's honest to all of those aspects on it, right? And so because like I love where the like day-to-day intersects with the bizarre, that's the kind of story that I end up telling, because those are the kind of things that I find super intriguing, right? So like in Forces, for example, most of the characters wear street clothes because they're high school kids, and high school kids dress how they want. But it's super high school. So some of the kids wear tights to school in their superhero uniforms because they're really geared up for it, right?
Wait, your normal high school wasn't like that?
Well, yeah, my high school wasn't like that, but I could see others might be.
So you're telling me you wore tights for different reasons, or
I'm wearing tights right now.
Yeah, because I was just wearing them. Like I don't.
Like I was Elizabethan all day. What's your deal, man? I need cod pieces. That's all they want.
What?
And ruffled colors.
Well, this got weird.
Actually, that was a gag from the last Forces story that we put up on the website. So it takes place on a Ren fair, so everybody's costumes got converted to Renaissance style, and it was a whole thing. Yeah, it was a fun story. Super complicated story, but it was fun. Because it had a cast of like 38 people. It was ridiculous.
That's a lot of people.
Oh my goodness. And not everybody had a big role.
Can I ask? So I hear like what interests you about storytelling in the stories you want to tell, but I don't have a clear fix on why. And I'm trying to keep you off the philosophical because you're really good at that, but I'm trying to ground it a bit more. Like why tell stories, beyond to your kids?
I think I know what you're trying to say here. And the next thing that you need to diverge is how do you want your stories told? Like what platforms can you tell it on, and where are those people? So a lot of your stuff kind of strikes me as like slice of life, and it's a very niche sort of thing. And that tends to be more of a like webtoons sort of thing, like webcomic-y. Like I like what Matt's going off of here. Like you know what you want, but how do you sell that to people?
Exactly, and where to even find the people to sell it to? Those are some that I've still not really figured out. And like we have started putting stuff on webtoons, right? So because I know there's a platform and there's that kind of weird stuff, and we're recoloring our archives, and by we, I mean myself. We're recoloring our archives. So we're putting it up like, 6 or 7 pages at a time, or a storyline, depending on, how it fits in there.
Yeah.
And so like there's usually I was shooting for a weekly drop, but my hard drive, my computer crashed Christmas Eve, so I spent a week resurrecting it, and so I'm like 2 weeks behind on my thing because my day job took up all the remaining time. Just yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so that's part of it. I think Webtoons is a good platform, especially for forces. And we've got some stuff up on Global Comics too. That we've taken some of our other projects that were just in print up there as well. And so I'm trying some experiments out there. And
yeah, how's that going?
Well, we're having some people. Last time I checked, we had 24 hits on the Joe Jobs book, and the first like 5 pages were up for free. So I don't know if I'm not sure how it ranges it. So I don't know if it's just like somebody has like we've had like 5 people or 4 people read the first 5 pages and call it good, or what that means. So, it's got a really neat format, but I'm still trying to feel out how that's going to work out. So, and once again, there's not a lot of place for feedback, and like and I'm not sure if I should, how to even approach that. So, trying to get some of that.
So, one of the things that we do in marketing is we set out a goal of like what we want to accomplish. Do we want people to buy this product, or are we spending marketing money to make them aware of the product? And half the time you're going to be doing a lot of awareness sort of campaigns, making them aware of it, get people drawn in. One of the things I want to say is we're talking about people reading our material. And a lot of times people aren't concerned enough to read the material. They'll do it if they find it cool or they want to do it. Like that, a lot of people are just apathetic towards that. They love the art, they love the concept. And then when it comes time to read it, they're just like, I don't really have to. But I want to say things become critical. Let's look at Common America in a sense. That became a must read this year. That suddenly became, everyone had to read that. Are you reading this? It became peer pressure. That became sort of everyone on Twitter was just like, you got to read this book. You got to read this book. And that's kind of like, I think what we all really want to head towards. But they had a lot of awareness built up beforehand. Think about how a movie gets presented. Trailers come out, teasers come out. They're making you aware of the product before they drop it on you. And now the whole entire time, they're spending so much money to get you to buy that product. So a lot of the time, you're just creating awareness. How you choose how to drive that awareness and where you drive people to is a whole entire another question. Do you want people to buy this product? Where do you want them to buy it at? And then that becomes another question of, well, some people don't use Indiegogo. Some people don't use Kickstarter. Some people don't use crowdfunding now. So then you gotta have to have a website open for them. Then you have to become somewhat open market for them because maybe you'll do really good in one-on-one sales. Maybe do really good in crowdfunding. Then you have to ask yourself, what does your book even fit? And you can start doing kind of character profiles of each site. Webtoons is very good in that anime, young girl, sort of comedy, slice of life sort of niche, and then you've got your little groupings underneath it, but that tends to be your high rollers. Indiegogo is really good with those sort of old 90s action books right now under a certain group. And that seems to be kind of their establishing format. Kickstarter is kind of like your window shopping site. That's become kind of like the main place that a lot of people are going to right now. But again, all these places you want to drive an audience to, which I'm sure Matt Cross here can totally relate to and probably back me up on here, is you got to create awareness and then you want to drive them to that. You want to get people excited. And one of the first things you said here is you said people seem to be excited for your stuff. Well, I think we can all attest here. We worked really hard to get that excitement, and it was a lot of failure and a lot of trying. One of the guys I want to talk about is Adam Lawson or Larson. I'm probably screwing up his name. If Paul could correct me in the comments here, the guy that does a Kill Journal, and he did the 8th. He works in Hollywood, and what he did, what I found out, is he'll put out an image and get feedback on it, but he's creating excitement at the same time, but he's trying to kind of get an idea of like how people are responding to that image. So the other half that you're doing is you're checking to see how people are responding. If you're not getting any response, then you have to retool your message, your presentation, or you're just not posting enough. That can be another thing. Are you posting enough? One of the things I learned, and I'm sure the other guys can account for too, you got to post in the morning, afternoon, evening, night. Different people are at different times, and you've got to see across all boards and who's responding at what times, because that's one of the first things that they talk about in marketing is the group that's on in the morning is not the same group that's on at night. And so you have to kind of going 24/7. So like when they talk about gearing up for a campaign, you kind of have to almost treat it like a second job because you're doing so many things. Your customer service, your marketing, you're the creator, you're everything. And Matt could probably go off and talk about even his experience with crowdfunding, that it's an uphill battle. Or even if you want to make sales, you just want to make sales in general. There's so many different avenues to go about it. So something like Joe Jobs, you would want to ask yourself here, is this a crowdfunding book? This it can be, but first you have to get people excited for it. How are you driving people towards that path? And this goes for anybody that wants to learn about how to get excitement or get awareness for your product, is how are you emotionally connecting with people? A lot of people make purchases based upon an emotional impulse. They resonate with that. And I think Joe Jobs is a perfect example of that, as in everyone has been in these sort of mundane jobs where they get frustrated and they start becoming frustrated and stressed out with their jobs. And that's a perfect example. And then start using those key words. Hey, do you get stressed out by your job? You got a crappy boss. Start hitting on those universal truths that we all resonate with. Like, we all hate those jobs. Maybe we all started with it, and it just kind of culminates into those sort of things. So you really want to tap into those emotional aspects. That was one of the key things I did with Raven, is I tried to tap into sort of the tragedy. Like, my crowd isn't those go-lucky, happy-feeling people. It's the people that have been through tragedy. And so it's understanding your crowd and what they're experiencing, because I'm not going to market Demon Hunter Raven to a bunch of poppy, good-feeling people that are like, enjoy life. It's going to be for the people that want answers in life and are searching, and that's what you draw them in with. You see, because you're like what Matt was saying. He said he heard you talking about a lot of the philosophical stuff. Mm-hmm. That's the meat of your product, but that's not the stuff you're gonna come out shooting with. So it's gonna be, you got a cool image. You got something that's gonna entice people. You got a good joke. People love comedy. So you got a good joke you can share with people. Like, Joe Jobs, again, I want to go with that as a perfect example of hysterical humor, where just the everyday things that are going on in that guy's life, just people could resonate with that. Like, there's so many things in that I was just like, yeah, no, I relate with that completely, and that's why it became a hit with me. And I just was like, oh man, that's where people will come from. And the more you and the unfortunate part is you have to give a lot of free stuff before people start buying, because a lot of people kind of do window shopping. They're like, I'm not sure. You want to make people sure of what they're buying. And that's a long diatribe of just really a condensed version of like what you're asking. But consistency in posting, figure out what you want to sell, figure out how you want to sell it, who you're selling it to, and then be consistent in your messaging. That's going to be the biggest thing.
Well, because what's being said here, I think, is that your online presence is part of your storytelling experience as a writer. You know what I mean? And you have to fall in love with writing that story, that marketing story. Do you know what I mean? Like, communicating that message with your online presence and these live streams and stuff like this. It's all part of entertaining people. It's all part of this meta writing experience that you're engaged with, I think. And you don't want to bifurcate that artificially.
Yep.
They really are over. It's I think they really do all tie together. So.
Well, and another thing too is you have these streams already. You've got people watching.
Yeah,
you can always open up with a small intro or an outro, just talking about like, hey, we got such and such at Ideal Comics, and have just a mention, just give a place that they go to. Like Tyler from Draw and Talk, he's really good at setting you up at the beginning, going like, hey, and we've got this coming your way, and it's just a quick ad that people get invested in. But he's getting people invested into stuff, and he talks about it week after week, and then he drops it. And so for you could be doing that week after week too, of just like getting people amped up. You're like, hey, I'm this is where I'm at with this right now. The more you talk about it, and a lot of times it feels like you're talking to an empty crowd, or there's nobody actually listening to you. And there's always that kind of fear at that point where you're like, man, I don't feel like I'm talking to anyone. But you'll be surprised how many people actually are listening, or they're just kind of just slowly going through, and you're just going to catch their attention. But you never know which one is going to catch their attention. And that's the one you want to pay attention to, is the one that actually does hit. And we're not talking about like viral content. We're talking about consistent posting and going, okay, that one did good, but this one didn't good. And then ask yourself, why did this one not do good? And why did this one do good? And then try to mix up your wordplay a little bit, because people resonate. They respond to so many different things, and you never know why or how. Would be my answer.
What do you think about this, Rhys?
No, it's good stuff. It's definitely thought provoking. The one thing that kind of comes down to it from what I'm thinking on is what does that mean application wise, right? Like, and what is the because one of the things like excuse me, one of the things that hampers me, right, right now is I don't have the the art aspect is not something that is I can't just whip out an awesome image because well, you guys have seen what I draw.
I still like it. You'll find a fan base on that.
And I think there are some things on it, and I'm thinking about going back to in the future, maybe 2022, if we with the next Forces story, actually drawing it myself. But I've got to get some other stuff off my plate before that happens. Because like that image of Raven and Demon Priest that I did there, Nick, that was it took me probably an afternoon to pencil, and then it didn't get finished for a month. So
yeah, I mean, life gets in the way. Life does get in the way.
Exactly.
And
that's one of those things with that too. And
Twitless says you still draw better than he does. So
well, that may be true, but I don't draw anywhere nearly as good as Cartoonicus does. So
well, in judging by what's behind you, you might be reading more books than Twitless. I'm sorry, Twitless.
Well, I think your art style could benefit from thicker contours on the outside, more like a cartoon.
Yeah, that's something that I've worked on incorporating more in the recent stuff. A lot of the stuff is just so old, right? And if you guys check out the Webtoon stuff that we're adding color to, it pops so much better with just a little bit of color on it, believe it or not. And I'm mostly just doing flat colors, right? Just for the sake of the speed of it. And because I'm not a great colorist, but even with that, I mean, it just looks a lot better.
Well, so can I ask you,
yes,
when you think of your art style, or just okay, the art style that you've been able to hire and the art styles you've been able to do yourself, where do those art styles typically find themselves, like genre-wise and audience-wise?
Yeah,
that's an excellent question, because that's part of the situation that's sort of been part of what it is. Like anything I draw is going to be super cartoony. So, because that's what I'm capable of.
And that's fine. That's fine.
And so for Forces,
that has an audience. Yeah, that has a particular look.
Well, and a lot of the stuff I've done in the last couple of years, I've noticed has got kind of an Andy Capp vibe, kind of a Mort Walker kind of a Sunday Funnies kind of thing, which I think can fit Forces really, really well. But it's totally the wrong fit for doing the exposition or serious gritty crime kind of stuff. And and Barry's got a better hand for that, and he's working on those new pages. Because
I can say, because I every time there's a mismatch, or maybe not a mismatch, but when there's an issue with audience when you're not able to when a creator is not able to connect with an audience in some way, and it has something to do with maybe they're pointing a particular style in the wrong direction or something like this. Like I hear it all the time where people say, well, that's just part of my thing. I'm trying to be quirky, where I'm saying I'm trying to subvert expectations, you thought you were going to get superhero stuff that's really serious and stylized, and very well rendered and anatomical and all this stuff. But instead I'm giving you Andy Capp, and that's okay. But that can be true. Yeah. You want that to be true in a good way, not true in you don't want to just be self-justifying.
Well, see, and I think that comes back to one of my main conceits about cross-genre storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? you if you're telling a superhero slice of life story, the superhero has to be superhero, and the slice of life has to be slice of life. You don't get a shortchange one or the other. It has to be both, or it's crap, right? And that's what made X-Men, Chris Claremont's X-Men work. That's what made James Robinson's Starman work. And those were predominantly superhero books, but those slice of life moments that they had in those drama moments were genuine, and they added weight. They added weight to the story, and you can't. And I think art's got to be the same way, right? And that's why, like, you look at the.
I think Scott Pilgrim's actually a pretty good example of that.
Or even a Todd.
Yeah, because there are ways you can successfully, break from this, but it is rare, and you do have to be exceptionally. It's not the typical path, and there are good reasons for it not being the typical path. Is the problem,
right?
Like, we always give ourselves an exception to everyone else's rule, and we don't want to. Yeah. We don't want to. If you want to know, you got to learn the rules first before you break them, I guess. Yep. And so I'm just thinking, like, is there a way for you to learn the rules better, and then figure out what you want to break? You know what I mean? Like, that's all I'm saying. So maybe it's hiring. If you could find an artist that does something closer to. I don't know, like is better at handicap. I don't know, or is better at superhero. That's half the
battle right there.
Yeah,
that is half the battle. It's as if you want to sell a product. So I don't mean this to be disrespectful or anyway, but like, this is something my wife asked me. She goes, "Well, would you buy your own product?" Because we're more likely to be in love with our own stuff. Yeah. But then when we have to step away, going, do I think that this is worth selling? And if you can honestly say yes to that, go gung ho with it. But if you have to take a step back and go, well, what would it take for me to buy this? That's going to be another thing you have to ask yourself.
All right. And that's one thing that I've always tried to keep in mind on is because I think that when it comes to, well, first of all, I definitely would read it, right? In terms of like Forces being a free webcomic. Yeah, I'd read it. I've read hundreds of pages of other people's books that have a similar vibe, or I mean, like, we've done crossovers with other people's stories, and so I've like, we did some crossovers with Matt Johnson's Cortland, and man, when I dug into that, like, you would not believe. Of course, his art's way better than mine, but the fact that if I had run across that where that crossover took place, I guarantee you I'd dive into it just because to see where the story went. Because that's the big thing for me is, like, I get it. I'm a story first guy, right?
Right.
I think I'm one of those guys that thinks, people might tune in for art, but they don't stay for art. They stay for story. At least I do. Right. Right. And there are very few exceptions to that, but.
He's a deer. I'm so glad he's trolling.
I do.
Thank you,
my problem is I think I'd be less likely to buy my own comics if I was high on drugs. Because mine are so far out there, I would probably break my brain.
I think if somebody really under the influence read your comics, I think they would fail to understand them, because I think they'd just be like, "It's just nonsense, man." Because your comics are really out there.
But you already feel like you're on a trip anyway.
They make sense when you're in the middle of them, but I don't think they'd make sense if you weren't. So if you were somewhere else, if you were functioning on less than all of your cylinders.
That reminds me of, that's like a Rags comic. I just read issue 1 of what's
Sailor?
Rags
Sailor Rogowski.
Yeah, Sailor Rogowski.
I bought issue 1, but I haven't read it yet. But Brian did send me the preview to read and to say what I thought of it, and I loved the preview, but I haven't read the actual thing yet. So
it's pretty good.
No spoilers, Matt.
Well, can I spoil one thing?
Yes, of course.
This is like on the what you said about the metal. He told me it was going to read backwards, and so I thought, this is totally a Brian thing. I thought that meant it was going to read right to left, So I'm like, okay, cool, Senpai Brian. But it reads backwards the forward, like it reads. You read the end of this. Do you know what I mean? Like you're
Only
picking
Brian
up.
can get away with that.
I don't know if he's going to get away with it. I'll just say that I'm not going to be Mr. Marketing. I'm not going to pump up everything. I had to read it twice just to follow a simple story. And I don't know. That's a bit much for me. So, but I don't know. But then again, I guess, I don't know. He's got I don't know anyone who has developed this far of like some super intense, like Discord fan base where they all get the joke,
Yeah.
So maybe he can get away with it, but he annoys me with how far he pushes this stuff.
Everything. It's insane.
But it's with everything.
You might, I guess like might be one reason why you guys jive together, because you like to really get kind of dense with the concept and everything. But that's like, I guess like, how is he? Well, I mean, I guess he's putting. He's putting tits and zombies in a story, so that's one thing he's doing that you're not.
That's exactly it. Brian did something I won't do, and that's part of it. Is Brian came up with this crazy idea that was just nonsense, and then he built it into something that was not nonsense. And I don't know, and I'm not going to say it's wrong because I bought the damn book. Right.
He got you to buy it.
Yeah.
I bought it. But I'm not going to do a tits book. That's just not something that I want to do.
And the sad part is, how do you market without tits? Because to generally say that is a huge selling point. Like if you look at half the Kickstarters, that's a huge chunk of the money. So it's like
it's a huge marketing point, and it's a boost. So then somebody's like, oh, I'm going to read a dumb titty book, and it's not. It's
right.
It's literature, right? It is heart. It is talking about these.
He subverted our expectations.
Mental health issues. Yeah. Yes.
But you can't. Yeah. But I think he knows the rule, and he knows what to break, and he knows what not to break is the problem.
Well, and he's
not breaking the people like tits rule. You know what I mean? He knows what to give. And same with Tim Lim, honestly, because I don't see a ton of buildup other than like in their emails, which are it is good to have those email lists. But like I don't see a ton of social media marketing on their end, but I see really good TNA pinup stuff. And that'll give you 10K just on day one, just on the covers alone.
And that's just and that's one of the things that when the lead up to Common America, and I knew what Tim was doing because I know Tim, right? But everybody was like, oh, this is going to be a stupid titty book, da 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 da. And the minute Common America 1 dropped, everybody stopped talking about her sexually, right?
Right.
It became this pure beauty, and everyone all of the fan base was like, I will attain. she became Andy McDowell from Groundhog Day. Just that concept of beauty, and it was, and I knew he was doing that.
So why won't you do that? Why won't you do Tim Lim's approach?
Well, first of all, I don't know that I necessarily have well, I can't draw ladies.
Yeah.
Drawing ladies is hard.
Drawing ladies,
hire someone
hard.
You can do that.
Well, and I think part of that depends on. Well, you see, hiring has another thing that I can't do a lot of
money.
Because if you could just throw down $300 for a good, hire some Japanese artist to draw you, Forces of Good and Evil hug pillow thing that they sell or something. Do you know what I mean? Like
what Sashi does.
Oh, a waifu pillow. That's what you need.
Yeah.
See how normie I am. Just do the interior art can be you. People do buy Tim Lim's books because of the covers. not just because of the covers, but he sells a lot he sold me based on the cover alone. And you can sell your stuff on the cover alone. People, so the book becomes a bonus, and then they get around to reading it sometimes. But they really want that cover. So if you can save up $200, $300, you can get a decent cover.
And one thing that we're looking at too,
men are hard to draw. That's true too.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think men are harder to draw than women.
Well, I think it's that men are less picky about women. I think that's part of it. I don't think they're really easier to draw, because when you get into faces, it's a whole different thing.
Faces. Oh, don't get started on that now.
Yeah, because a man's face is easy. They're just a bunch of angles with a
frown. The woman's face is even easier. You just barely draw anything. You keep it really subtle. Less lines.
That's the hard part, though, is the less, because we always want to lean into more, but the less you have to, the more subtle lines, like the Batman animated series, like the more simplified you go, you have to really concentrate on the actual lines you want to put out there. Anyways.
Yeah. So
because I just want to,
before to interrupt you, one thought I want to just tell Star, I keep forgetting to take it in to get scanned, so it's sitting by I commissioned Star to do a piece that is awesome, and you will love it. But I will take it in to get scanned tomorrow, because I don't have a scanner large enough in my house. So but that will be done tomorrow. So I will get that ready tomorrow. It's a really good piece. It's got pretty girls on it.
Okay.
It's probably going to end up being the cover image for the next Forces story whenever I get to that. But before that, it'll be just a piece of promo art, because it's beautiful. So,
okay, can I stop you there?
Yes.
Don't show that art until you're ready to sell something. Even if it breaks Star Storyteller's heart. Well, she'll be happy with it. It will not break her heart, because she'll know that she's making you money if you do not show any of it until you have a product with a price tag next to it where people can put in their money. Because if you show that thing now and then 3 months later you try to sell off of it, it's already going to be stale, as good as it is.
The thing about it is that the Forces story that I'm going to do will be free. It'll be on the web. So that'll after the archives are colored and everything else, it'll just be on the web. So I'll repurpose that art for the cover. It won't be.
But the print version is going to have its own unique cover, right? And
Forces doesn't go to print. The web version doesn't go to print. It'll just be on the web. So
okay, I'm trying to make you money.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Money's nice.
Money's nice. Well, and that's like one of the things I had you proofread a script. So so everybody knows. So everybody knows. In 2021, we will be doing, hopefully, provided our last project gets done. Yes, Ezra.
Willis has an OnlyFans?
What?
Does Witless have an OnlyFans? Is that what he's saying?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I was actually going to bring this up. In a way, I am selling my body, because my main marketing is actually me. I'm in a very unique advantage here, where for most people, self-inserts don't work because they're just not interesting people. But my main flagship story, the main character is the metal. And I'm an interesting person that people tend to like. So the more I sell myself, the more I sell the stories regarding that character.
And also, you're literally, every time I see you, there's a GIF of you in your artwork, which is constantly telling me, "Hey, I need to go find him on Twitter and hire him to do some, sprite sheets or something."
Yeah, I'm really good at selling myself, particularly.
Yeah,
and I try to use that as an advantage for the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but back to what was I talking about before? Oh. That there is a Forces spin-off story that's not going to be part of our webcomic, that is only going to be available in print, that is called I've Been to Hell, and it is part of that webcomic continuity, but it's not going to be printed as part of the website story. So that's a different thing.
Okay, and that's going to have a cover that you will not show anyone until you're selling it.
Yes. that will be totally, and it's not because of my horrible experience with the expositioner story and my foolishness with all of that, because it's not done yet. And it's more than a year late, and I feel like crap about that. And standing offer to anybody who backed that book, if you want your money back, we haven't spent any of it. So for the love of God, let us know.
No, I just want my book.
I know. Yeah. I want you to have your book too.
Where's my cape book?
It's bad. It's bad. But I did send PDFs out of everything we had before our first penciler flaked out on us.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's the story.
That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that, Matt. I'm sorry. Okay.
If you wanted to draw my book, Nick, we could probably.
The problem is I've offered to draw everyone's book lately. I'm like,
I'll tell Barry. Feet, man. Barry's gonna catch me on the replay. He's gonna be like, "You asshole! I can't believe it."
Help me out, man.
But then he'd turn away from the mic and be like, "Yeah, I understand."
Probably. But anyway, like I said, so with I've Been to Hell, that's not going to be like I'll until it's finished. I'm not going to be dropping a lot of art for it. I'll be doing some of the pencil stuff, some teaser stuff as we get closer along. But the story's complete finished. All the pencils are finished. The inker is my 17-year-old, who is very talented, but will he's also a high school senior, so that takes priority. But yeah, that's as that moves along, that'll be a different story. But yeah, it's it'll take its time, and when it's done, it'll be done. But it's not done yet.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
About online presence.
Yes. What
story are you trying to tell online with yourself, with Matt Rhys?
I don't know. I don't.
That's your 2021 right there.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is I'm not trying to tell any story online. I'm just being.
Yeah, that's a problem, and that doesn't mean that you're being honest or dishonest. It just means that you're letting Twitter and Facebook use you as a product rather than you using it as a product. If you go in there with a particular intent and it's a business intent, you can make it your slave, But until you do that, you're its slave. It's monetizing you. You need to learn how to monetize it, and that means telling us a specific story that's on brand and not deviating from that story. And it can be 100% authentic. It can be real. It can be as true as your heartbeat is, but it has to be. It does have to be branded, frankly, So,
which goes back to my unique advantage.
Yeah. See what the metal's doing. Like, he never shows up on a stream without a GIF. I mean,
yeah. Well, and
he doesn't leave money on the table.
Yeah, and that's part of the deal too, though, is like, the metal character is just it's exaggerated, it's beyond, but it's not something that's so far beyond. I mean, it's everybody who's read X Dynamos is in on the joke. So there's a community that's just built to wherever you go. So whether you're hanging out with here or you're over with Rick or whatever, I mean, like, it's all part of the show. So that's fun. But that's part of the thing, right? So like, another one of the challenges that I have is I know, first of all, I have this little show here, which is fun and I enjoy it, and I'm fairly decent at asking people about themselves and talking about stuff. But let's face it, I'm a hard person to deal with, right? There is a reason I have less than 200 subs.
You're not exactly like a yes and improv guy. You're more like a no, let me correct you kind of guy, which isn't maybe you're subverting my expectations. But It's not. It's not
the other
part
of it is that, like, you know, this. I mean, we have like 30 to 60 people that watch weekly, and that's awesome.
That's a pretty good sized audience.
Yeah, it's a decent sized audience, right?
And a lot of big people tout you, you know,
especially
people like you.
It's especially interesting because I have a fairly low subscriber count, so like my ratios are much higher than
than me. Yeah, it's really good. It's good stuff.
That's not true.
It is a strength.
But no, it's actually really interesting on that side of it. I think a lot of that has to do with the people that want to come on and talk. You know, because people will follow Doug, they will follow either of them. Doug Ernst has his group of people that'll show up. Tim's got their group. Next week I'm having Tim and Brian on, so I will probably have a huge show that will be unable to be controlled. It's going to be insane.
No, just let it happen. It's not.
I'm watching for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be a trash fire. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
In the best sort of ways. I love those guys. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, that's part of the thing is I do have this show and it's a lot of fun, but I also, the thing that is sort of unique about this is, like, I don't care, right? I mean, like, I'm glad people enjoy the show. That's why I'm keeping doing it. But I have no desire to get like X number of subs. I wanted 100 because I wanted to have a custom URL, and I'm done. I'm happy. That's great.
Like, do you think that? Because I kind of think that sometimes your show is similar. The reason you turn on when you hit "Let's go live" and you actually stream and you don't just call me on the phone or something, which you can always do.
Yes,
it's
always
because,
no.
Yeah. I think you have similar reasons, and I think it's because you have ideas you want to talk about, and that's fine. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm just trying to think about our audience. We have the people hanging in the chat right now. Like, how can we give them something entertaining? Like, it doesn't have to be like, obviously you've been doing this for like 2 years now, I think, at this point. So people know what to expect, and it's like usually pretty chewy, interesting, thought-provoking, like long form content, I think. But like continue, like branding that outward with your social media presence, I think is an example of how you can continue to be authentic, continue to be the real, Matt T. Rhys, but do it online in a way that's entertaining. Like, because frankly, you're just all you are. You think that you're just posting stuff for your thoughts, but when you're on Twitter, you're just an account that's putting stuff on other people's timelines. And if you annoy people too much, they're just gonna unfollow you or mute you. You're there to entertain them, or to give them substance in some way. You know.
Well,
so
one thing I want to know is Matt Crossier is really good at identifying who he's speaking to. Like, your historical content and then how you promote your book all tandemly are within the same audience branch. So he's really good at knowing who he's talking to, how he needs to talk to them. And then when it comes time for him to basically monetize that idea or whatever he's pushing for, like, I've really noticed that you're really good at pinpointing that. And I'm
only doing that online.
I think there's two things that Matt's content really hits that, at the risk of sounding jealous, it's just things I've spotted that are awesome, and I'd love to figure out how to do it, but I don't think I'm equipped. Right? One is, like, you get the perfect balance of historical content and snark together, right? On the one hand, right? And your snark is so light that, like, everybody digs it, right? It's not like the acerbic sectarian snark, right? And everything. And the other side of it is that you have the stupidest memes that you create, like these ridiculously dumb memes that you stick Kyrie in that just make everybody laugh, right?
Yeah, like I never, if I ever make a meme that is not at the end of the day, like something where you are laughing at me and I'm not laughing at you, then I'm off brand. Yep. I'm not being the person I'm supposed to be. Like Twitter is now using me instead of me using Twitter.
Right.
And I'm not honestly not being myself online. I'm being dishonest and I'm just trying to allow the algorithm to manipulate me. So all of those things are terrible. So so that would be another approach, is like, how can I take the piss out of everything I throw up on Twitter so that I'm keeping things light, I'm having fun. Like, you can never quite stick me in a particular category because I'm constantly making fun of myself as I sit within that category. I stereotype myself and then I make fun of that stereotype. Like, so those kind of things I think kind of help people to just kind of relax and be like, okay, he's, and if I disagree with him, I can make fun of him and then he'll like my comment and then he'll make fun of himself right back. Like, I know it's not going to start an argument if I disagree with him, those sort of things.
I'm just thinking out loud here. Not sorry to cut you off here, but I found Twitter to be very heavily more focused on the writing community. Like, artists can thrive on there, but artists really thrive more on Facebook and Instagram for sure. And Matt, since you're a writer, like that is your strength. And I find that when writers are using that skill on Twitter, they tend to do better. I mean, Facebook can be the same thing too. Like, Facebook's a whole entire different monster, but I've noticed that the writers I follow have a much better time at garnering an audience, especially with what Matt's saying there. If you know how to talk to them and the way that he's staying on brand, like, be true and authentic to yourself. But I think you could use Twitter to show off your gifts more. Think of it the way as you're showing off your gifts. There was someone that Cody had been telling me about. Jack Irons guy was talking. One of his people was telling him that, like, always tell a story. Make sure you're always telling stories. Get people to relate and get people to come back. But I like what Matt's saying there. Like, you use it to your advantage. Don't let Twitter use you. Don't react to everything you see. Make Twitter react to you.
Preach. Amen.
I got a Holy Spirit going on in here.
Yeah, what about that?
Twitter fire.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But that's the one thing too, is like that, because I'm certainly not disagreeing with you, right? Because I think that those are wise statements.
I swear, if you say I don't care,
that's part of it, right? Because on the one hand, like I don't. But
then why did you hit stream?
Caring is a discipline, so you have to work at it just like anything else.
This is true. But no, so I hit stream because I wanted to talk to you guys.
But you didn't have to.
I care about what you say. That doesn't necessarily mean I care about the consequences of what you've said. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not.
And why go public with it?
And I'm not being totally dismissive about it. Why? Because I've been doing this long enough. It's now a habit.
Okay.
And also because my wife tells me that she sees people enjoy it, and that's worth something. And so I listen to what that woman tells me as often as I can. I don't always apply it, but I do try to listen because she's far wiser than I am. But no, so here's the thing, right? What I don't care about is I don't care about being liked. I don't really care about being agreed with. And it's not that I want people to dislike me. It's just that my value is not. I mean, anybody in the world can hate me except for that woman upstairs, and I'll go to sleep just fine at night, right?
But you want people to like your story, and what we're saying is your online presence, including these streams, including your Twitter, including your Facebook, is part of your.
That's true.
That is a story that you are telling. So if you're telling us that you don't care about writing those stories,
right? No, but I mean
stories, then you're not being a writer on a day-to-day basis.
Finish.
I got to get aggressive with you, or
you're jumping ahead of me. But no, the other thing about it. So the one thing is that, like, because social media, is designed to make people care about being cared about. And because of my naturally rebellious nature, I think I actually double down on that simply because that's what I know they're trying to program me for.
Right.
But the other side of it, so one is that, and we went off on the caring thing because you stepped it out there. But the other thing is the application of it all, right? Because like part of, like I said, like part of why I want to tell the stories, part of my brand. You said it, that the whole show, it's this long form, very mouthfully, chewy kind of content, right?
Yeah.
Which, you know, full of a significant amount of self-deprecation, which also kind of describes the way Forces lays out if you read through the whole thing. But at the same time, right, how would you go about doing that? Because part of my brand is telling, I mean, part of my personal, I can't get away with it, is trying to tell the truth as much as I can, right?
Make that part of your brand.
And confronting falsehoods where I see it, right?
Wouldn't everyone describe themselves that way? Like, I don't think you're on brand yet.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I think most people want to please themselves, right? I think you want to please yourself. It's fine. Really, Matt, if I wanted to please myself, I would get off Twitter. I would drop social media altogether.
Okay, so you're trying to please others by being on Twitter?
I am
I'll
here.
do something weird.
I am here to try to tell. I mean, that the reason I got on Twitter was to try to connect with people about my comic. Right, that was it. If I didn't have a comic I'd make, I would drop the whole. I mean, I wouldn't say.
So we got to help you with your brand. You got to learn how to care about that brand.
I've nearly deleted my Facebook. I'm barely on Facebook anymore, except sharing links to stuff.
Yeah.
It's just straight slog, and they've done such crap job maintaining their format that it's just like getting anything stupid. And
I can't use it other than group messenger for like 2 years. I'm basically not on Facebook anymore. It's terrible.
Terrible. And like,
I only use it as a page manager.
I don't want to use their stupid app, right?
Yeah.
So like I've got web browsers on my phone, and so you can't use Messenger anymore. They've updated Messenger, so you can't use it on anything but their app for it.
Right.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So like me and some of the other Ideal Comics guys, we were using Messenger to swap messages back and forth. I can't get in touch with those guys anymore. So we just went ahead and set up because I'm never on. So I set up a text message group, and we're communicating on that way for the last week. It works great.
Yeah, who'd have thought?
Yeah, just old school text messaging, SMS messaging. Come on, man. Anyway, but yeah, I mean that's the thing is like and this is one of the things that even like, you know, talking about topicalness, right? Like the whole everything like in the last, you know, 72 hours.
Oh gosh.
I'm about ready to, I just like, you know, just all this nonsense. I just am just so over the human race. We've, you know, the only, I was nearly there before, but let's face it, you know,
let's wind down with some
the only justice that exists anymore, you know, and I'm not sure truth can even exist in our realm. I believe it's real and it's transcendent, but I'm not sure it exists here.
It's getting more and more difficult. That's for sure.
Nobody cares except, you know, maybe the people at this table here.
So this is why I think it was easy for me, because the idea of pleasing yourself and being on brand for me is kind of the same thing, because my whole life has been about kind of being on brand. I'm kind of like a classical man in like the Alexander the Great kind of way, where I'm living a narrative and I make my choices based on the narrative that I'm living. You know, like I have an image inside myself I have to live up to. And because of that, an audience just kind of naturally corrals around that.
Very Aristotelian.
Yeah, I think I think there is definitely a case, an argument to be made on that, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I, as a human being, right, am absent from that. If you look at, like, I consistently get new people following me on Twitter. I have new people tuning in. We have great conversations. I have wonderful guests, but none of that's the comic.
Yeah, which in my case, it is the comic for me, right? So it's like, I don't care what other people think of me, but I do care what I think of me. but because what I think of me ends up going into the story, what other people think of me ends up attracting them to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. See how it all ties together?
See, probably the only successful self-insert that people aren't just like, oh my God, that's cheesy. Well, maybe not only. There was a lot of of Bob Burden and the flaming carrot, but the giant head kind of threw people.
Most of Hemingway's work is self-inserts. Most people just don't know it because they don't know much about Hemingway.
Actually, they're open secret that F. Scott Fitzgerald based almost every character off somebody he knew. So, fun.
Best way to do it.
Yeah, well.
So okay, so what do you think? What and the reason I'm asking, I promise, like I'm asking because I'm wondering what I want to learn from this chat too. So if you are very articulate, so if you can tell me what you are taking home from this, maybe I can, if you can distill it, then I can take it home too, and I'm sure the rest of us can. So like, what are you taking home from this? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
No, so okay, so here's the thing.
I always love your honesty.
This thing has gotten, I mean, there's in this conversation as a whole, right? And we've been at this an hour and a half, which thank you guys for coming on. We've been at this for an hour and a half. And there's been a lot of threads and a lot of great ideas that are applicable, like generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But what I don't necessarily know is what that means. Like, what am I going to do different tomorrow, right? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is. You know what I'm saying? And it's sort of like, because that's part of it. Is I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. I don't think, like social media that I should do something different.
I'll give you a little piece of advice here of what you can do, right? Because you have your Ideal Comics account. What you should do is you set yourself an alarm, 5 different ones throughout the day, spaced fairly amount. And on the Ideal Comics Twitter, you put a random, interesting, but unimportant fact about the world. Something that gauges somebody but couldn't possibly spoil anything. To just keep people constantly interested in the world you're building, not necessarily an individual story.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
That is a good idea.
The only problem is coming up with, so let's say if you do 5 times a day, 7 days a week for a month, that's like what, 150 updates? That's a lot of.
Well, with the comedic styling of your world, a lot of them can just be really stupid things.
Yeah.
See, and then you have to feed into my need to manage the continuity or have to keep track of a giant list of them. But
that's right.
But you know what? That's the effort that has to go into it sometimes.
Yep. So like here's a little side note with it. We years ago, we made a throwaway joke about Chad's father having multiple wives because we thought it was funny one time. Right.
Oh jeez.
And we not at the same time, like serial of wives, right? And so not like polygamy, like serial monogamy, right? So we had to then one day Chris and I were working on a story and we actually brought Chad's dad into the story. We never thought we'd actually show him on screen, but we had a story called Parents' Day and both Chad's mom and dad showed up and it was a whole platform thing. We had to remember how many wives he had so we could tell that story. So we had to go back through our archives, like, where was that? And figure out where we put it in there. Because we'd made a throwaway joke like 4 years before that. So that was fun. Turned out really well, though. I like that story. Parents' Day. It's one of my favorites. It's got a cover image by Rolf Gardeau. It's really fun. Anyway, we did that in 2014.
That's a while ago.
It is.
See, I would have just come up with an excuse to cover my own butt if it was a higher number than it used to be by the time I found it. I would have said, I was trying to downplay how many wives I've lost. Or if it was a lower number than it used to be, it's like I was trying to seem like more of a man than I actually am.
That'd be funny.
Excuse me.
What? Come on, man! It's early yet.
It is, but it isn't. I think a storyteller had a question a while back about completing a book. Before you, it was a little bit far down.
So, here we go. I have a question. What do you guys think of Reagan Lodge and his idea of drawing the entire book before trying to print it? What are some pros and cons of that approach? Okay. I think you meant before selling it, because you can't print it before it's drawn. I think that's like at this point, especially because we've had production problems with the Expositioner story, that's like the only way to go about doing it. I don't think it's fair to backers to make them wait, an undetermined amount of time to get something put together. It's one thing especially if you're looking at something like, the line art's done and we've got coloring we're doing during the campaign or something like that, where it's fixed. But I just think that it's essential at this point, unless it's something like like Doug TenNapel has such a rigorous production schedule that even though the campaign for Earthworm Jim 2 was running when he was finishing up the final pages of it, and it's not getting printed until the new year because that's when Jostens can print,
Because
I remember that. that's just how it's, people are aware of it at that point. And it's a dependable product that people can expect. So
and I think it's good. This being Reagan's as popular as he is, this is still his first book. And so he's able to, he's not just like brokering his clout. He's also saying like, I'm trying to guarantee that this book does get fulfilled on time. So
right,
so there's that, and he gets at this point like 2 years of Twitch streaming. Mm-hmm. Where people get to watch him draw it, so that's good too, without people getting frustrated because they want the book because it's not available yet. So that's also good. So,
and I think one of the big factors that you have in some of that too is just that, and that's part of the trip is getting to see the whole thing done. And it's one of the things too. Like I think fan expectations mean a lot too, right? Mm-hmm. So. Like with Matt's book, we with Kyrie Volume 2, like everybody knew going into it that when the campaign's over, the campaign's not over, right?
Yeah.
What you're getting, here's what it is, but this is the amount we need, and we're gonna keep at it till we get that, and And I think everyone knew going in, so there wasn't nobody's feeling cheated, right?
Yeah. But, it's part of the story. Of your honesty, your campaign is part of your story. You know what I mean? So telling that story clearly and effectively, where people interpret it accurately the first time, kind of thing, is good.
Yeah, definitely a factor on that. And I do gotta say too, hey, Ichthus is in the chat.
Ichthus!
I do want to say too, one thing I really appreciate, Metal, that idea is something that it really resonates with me, because one of the challenges that we have had for a long time is trying to figure out, do we want to try to pitch a story or do we want to try to pitch a universe? Right. And how does one even do that? Right. So,
well, that's exactly what I'm doing, is pitching a universe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that everyone knows that though. But
yeah, that's the thing. I think I've been doing a good job about it though. Like I've been kind of like subtly sneaking the universe into people, whether they know it or not.
That's what we wanted to do with Forces, right? that was the original intention with Forces itself as a website when Chris and I started it and started working on taking this idea and giving it some legs in 2005. Mm-hmm. And 1 second here, hang on. Pardon. But as we moved along, I mean, we had our anthologies and we've gone to cons and we've our print anthologies have each got like 7 stories that take place at different parts of history. And it's this whole kind of thing. But
I never really know what people mean by like they're selling a universe, because I feel like that's it, even when you say that, I hear you saying that you're really selling a story. It's just a big one.
Yes.
Or something.
That is exactly right. It's a story made up of a bunch of stories. So the question then becomes like, well, people like who love that kind of deep lore, which I think is like me, be like, ooh, I would love to invest in this whole thing. Like when I first got into comics, right? And like I started reading Batman, and when Batman and Nightwing showed up and the whole Teen Titans thing, and like I was like seeing how all these threads fit together and all these big themes, and like that was that complex enwrapping thing was something that I loved, right? But like for some people, but at the same time, like my love of this like completionist concept, not full completionism per se, but that's the kind of thing where dang it, Twitless. But that's the kind of thing where like that holds me back from some stuff intentionally, right? Like I won't watch Doctor Who, right? Because I'm not going back to season 1. I'm not going to read the radio plays. I'm not going to, whatever. I'm just not going to do it. I refuse. There's too much content. My life is too short. I have other things I want to do. So the same thing that I love about it is also an impediment for things. And I think that like when it comes to those like big grandiose ideas, that can be a thing that is inhibiting for other people too. But I also know that like I think if I'm one guy in the world, how do I find the other people like me that would dig on something like this? Because there's got to be people out there.
Well, I do think it is still even something more than just selling somebody a big story or collections of stories. And this is why I've also been branching out into other things. It's not just a single medium. I don't just do comic related stuff. I'm also working, and people who follow me know I'm working on like a trading card game. I'm also working on a tabletop RPG for it as well. What you're selling when you're selling a universe. And this is something that a lot of people, it came later from them. They didn't have the intent on doing this, is you're selling an immersive experience where the person feels like they're part of a world. It's not just the narrative. Yeah. It's their history just as much as it's the history of the characters.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely something that we've wanted to capture. But the mechanism of how to get that across without just because it's like one thing that Ichthus in the chat said, I think world building is the last thing to mention in a pitch. That's 100% true, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like I can sit around and talk about how our history goes back to the beginning of time and things are just a little bit different than how you think they are, right? And right. That stuff's fascinating if you've read all the appendices to Lord of the Rings. If you're that guy, let's sit and talk about it. I'm the only one I know who's done that. That's not true. It's an exaggeration. But
you got into that stuff because a character drew you into the story and the lore started to expand from that. So I think another thing you could also ask yourself, who's a character that you could also start marketing to people? Like you come in there for something that grabbed your attention, and then the lore drove you into go explore.
Well, this is why I picked and I tossed it around. Like I could have put anybody in that role. It didn't have to be me and my friends. Originally it was going to have like similar personalities with different people there. The reason I chose it to be a self-insert is speaking Lord of the Rings, I'm one of the only other people that have done all that. The character that drew me into it wasn't any individual character in the story. It was the narrator. And I figured, like, what's the better way to hook you on a narrator, especially in a medium that was originally written similar to like how pulps were written, and then I started doing a comic of it, than the person telling the story, but you're not quite aware that the person telling you the story is also the one that's starring it.
Excuse me. There's so many ways that you could go about it that there is no right or wrong answer. It's how you want to do it. Because we could all sit here and tell you this works, this doesn't work, but in reality, it's what you're going to feel comfortable with, what's genuine, and what you can articulate best through you. Because why do people come to this stream, Matt? Because they genuinely like you and they like how you present yourself and how they come about it. Like, that's what, I'm gonna be honest, straightforward. I found your channel on accident, and I just loved how you were very cordial and you intervened people with a sincerity. People are going to come to your books because they're going to find the same thing in them. So when I started asking, why do people back or crowdfund books? What's one of the things that they said? Well, art, and then the other one was the creator. So if the creator is someone that they can trust, they found outstanding, like what Matt Cross is here, you're delivering. They like what you represent. So you can get a following. You can get people that just back you out of just simply like they feel like there's a connection with you, or like, you know, what you stand up for. Okay, why does Doug TeNapel have so many followers? Because he stands up, he has conviction, he has morals. Guess what, Matt? You got the same stuff.
Well, and he has 20 years worth of comics. I mean,
that doesn't hurt. But I mean, it's a long journey. It's not just going to be one thing overnight.
And that's one of the things too, where like I'm a little bit in a holding pattern right now, because you know I don't really want to start a whole lot of stuff until we get that expositioner book done, right? So that's like kind of we're in there. So we're a little bit of a holding pattern on stuff. I'm still working on stuff. We're like doing the Forces archives, coloring that up. I'm really happy what that is. We've taken some of we used to have on 2 versions ago on our website, we had a sub site called the Short Box, which was all like tiny stories from our universe.
Right.
And so I've taken some of those stories and we're putting them up on Global Comics on platform for free.
So
you can flip through those. And that kind of thing. So some of that stuff is in fact another one drops tonight. That one's not entirely free. But that's one of the things that we're wanting to I'm just kind of looking at some of those different avenues and stuff, but thinking about how to what to approach, how to look into that kind of thing is just something that intriguing. Plus I had to come up with a topic tonight. I think I told all of you guys this, that the guest who I was going to have on tonight told me, not last minute, but just after the new year, he was like, "Oh, I want to come on in like March." I was like, oh, "Okay." I'd mapped this out before the holidays and didn't check back with my messages, but sorry. Thank you. Definitely see you in March.
You can start marketing now. We got a great show coming up in March. You guys won't believe it. It's going to be amazing.
In March.
In March.
But yeah, authenticity is probably the most important thing you can sell on the internet. That's what internet users go for the most.
And that's not a rule. That's not a rule you can break. You know.
I'm sorry.
People
I
sniff it out.
for a second reading the chat. What was the rule?
Sincerity.
Being authentic.
Being authentic. Yeah.
I don't think it's even. I'm capable of that. I not to sound self-aggrandizing, but I'd have a really hard time not just saying things I think of.
Well, that's going to be a driving point. There's going to be a lot of people that drive to that, right? Because if you look at things right now, and without getting in any conversation of what's going on in the current world around us, people are looking for authenticity. They're looking for people with moral conviction that aren't wishy-washy, aren't just like people pleasers. I think you just said that right there. You're not looking to please people. And I really want to go back towards the example of Doug TeNapel of a lot of people. There's no middle ground with that guy. People either hate him or they love him. And I think that's exactly where you stand in, is people are either going to hate you or they're going to love you. And I think that is going to be your perfect journey. And when me and Matt are talking about your character online, you don't even have to really acknowledge that you're doing that. It's just you putting yourself out there, and it's not to simply please yourself. It might just be simply let's talk it from a Christian standpoint here. You have a duty to go out there and spread the gospel, and you're doing yourself a disservice by not going out there and sharing those convictions with people. The fact that you have a stream where people can openly talk about their faith, or they can even ask questions. That's huge. That's huge. Because the way we're looking at things right now, that's going to become a problem. Yeah. And so I think that's where you have something that a lot of people don't have. You have the ability for people to have that open conversation. You have a Christian comic stream that draws in people. Yeah. You have a brand. You don't even realize it.
And brand might not. If brand feels like a dirty word, you can. I'm sure you're a better writer than me, so you can find a different one. But it's not true. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a online intentionality, I guess, is all I guess brand is. So just figuring that out and figuring out how to enjoy being on Twitter, because it's a storytelling platform where you get to tell your interests and tell your interests narratively, talk about your comics narratively. I
have a story. I have a Twitter story to tell you guys.
Oh, please.
No, this is something Matt said a few years ago. I think it was 2019, just after we really started getting acquainted. It may have been winter 2019. But I was bickering with somebody over something that was true but not important. and
as Twitter does.
Yeah, so I have this habit of 232 characters, 1 dash. 200 right. Yeah. And so Matt came in and commented to my first thing, and he says, when Rhys drops a 1 dash, it's a doozy.
I didn't know I said that. Yeah,
that was you. And I have never forgotten it because it's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, like Twitter says,
he said buckle in or something like that, but it was something
right.
Like because Twitless says your path will not be entirely the same as any other creator. I find that trying to follow too closely to someone else's path is a mistake. And I think everyone here is telling you exactly that. They're telling you to follow, it's almost like understand yourself more, look in the mirror more, so that you can understand yourself well enough to demonstrate yourself publicly, I guess. The real you, the you that is not me, that isn't anyone else, anyone else but you. So that's as authentic as it can be. But the more you look in the mirror, the more you can kind of not use brand, because I know it's not.
No. I mean, I have no problem with the concept of branding. So
okay, cool.
I don't think
that's why I keep calling like what I do a unique advantage. I wouldn't recommend anybody else do it, but also how many other people would like strip down to just their pants and go running obstacle courses in the snow?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I do have a good friend who hikes. I mean, who camps under similar circumstances. That dude's hardcore. But
that's his brand.
Nick got sent into the corner. Did you break all the tomato sauce? That's hilarious. That's a
throwback
cut. That's what that is. My show officially has deep cuts. That's awesome.
Nice. Got some more.
I just got moved to a new corner. That's all. I got a bricks now instead of a flowery curtain.
In relationship to one thing I was going to say too, in relationship to Metal's comment, I think you may have been on the show. I had Matt. I've had my buddy Matt Johnson on for a while, and he had his character Cortland. He said he felt like it became a self-insert, and so he killed him.
Oh,
yeah. He said I felt like the character was too identified with me, and that I was feeling that, and he felt like it was starting to take away from the story, and so he ended that whole comic series by killing the main character. Great death. Great. Sorry to spoil a 15-year-old webcomic, but it's a great.
I'm done.
So
you don't spoil things on me.
Yeah, well, actually, the crossover we did with his comic was years and years later, was like a decade later, and we actually had there's a specific point where there's a space in his story that my story sticks in the middle between two of his stories, and we worked together to really make all the pieces fit. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So if you read Forces, the story, Plain History #2, Old School, or Part 2, Old School, with Cortland shows up, actually takes place in the middle of his longer narrative. So, because all of our stuff is the our ideal comic stuff has a fixed timeline where it all has specific dates that it happens in. So, and most of it happened, years ago, but. Which is unlike X Dynamos in ways that I'm not going to tell you.
It's the old times of wallet chains and Jinko jeans and.
Hey, those were cool back then. Don't be knocking them.
No,
it's a little different because Aliens made in the 50s. So things are a little different in our universe.
Stone Age. Gotcha.
Well, guys, this has been fun. It's been almost 2 hours. Thanks so much for coming on and telling me how inadequate and what a failure I am. I appreciate that.
I got more. We can keep going.
No, that's good. 2 hours is plenty. But seriously, guys, I appreciate it. I thought this was a fun stream, and I will definitely be at least. I'm not sure I can do 5 times a day there at Metal, but that's a really.
Well, that's tweeting 5 times a day is the recommended number for growth. You can start a lot smaller.
We'll see what happens. So if you guys do follow me over at Webtoons, Forces of Good and Evil is over there. We are going through the whole archives, coloring them. I should have another update up tomorrow, which will be part 2 of the story Field Day. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. Also, check us out on Global Comics. If you want to throw money at the company, help us make more art, because the writing doesn't get paid. Go ahead and check us out on Patreon. And hey, you can always check the replay, Flock. Also, I need to get your preview because I love your style and I want to read more of it. So that's his stuff. Looks.
He's got the Flock's got a Kickstarter hitting in February 25th. Did I get that right, Scott? Did I get that right?
It's tasty looking stuff. I'll tell you that much.
It is very good.
Next week on the show, Tim Lim. I think Mark Pellegrini. If not, I'm going to reach out to him too because I want him here. Trent Luther and Brian Ball from Rags and Cody Fernandez. I need to double confirm with him for sure. Coming on to talk about pop culture references in comics and how to make it not cheesy. How to make it really well. Yeah, that's next week's show. And the week after that, Matt's coming back. And I'm trying to remember who all else right now. Omiao. I can't remember his name right now. Skipped it off my head. And one other dude, I can't remember who it is, talking about mythology in comics, folklore and mythology, and having all fit.
Yeah.
And that's
wow, I actually put out a story about folklore and mythology in comics recently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that's coming up 2 weeks, and I can't remember who the final week is. I did have somebody booked, and I got to go back to the messages and find out who it is. Curses. Christmas threw me off.
I don't have your job.
I didn't check any of my
show up
like a week, and I forgot about everyone. So
oh no.
So, and of course I wish a ton of people happy birthday. I mean Merry Christmas. So I did the Frosty the Snowman thing. Good night, everybody.